Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Extraordinary Technology Conference 2017. This morning, we're going to be going into our speaker presentation today. We're going to be hearing from Jere Rivera Dugenio. Jere hails from Honolulu, where he received his PhD in natural medicine. He's going to be speaking on scalar vortex energy and plasma healing therapy. So Jere, 17 years ago, actually had a near-death experience, and it radically changed his perspective of reality and how human beings interact with the energy of the world. So I would like you to give a warm welcome to Jere.
Sorry, this thing fell. Sorry.
There are technical difficulties, but we'll be back on track momentarily. Scotch tape. It's the conference's duct tape, because duct tape has been supplanted by grip tape. All right, come on up, Jere.
Thanks. I think I got too excited. Can you guys hear me? First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here so early in the morning. I know it's not easy, but thank you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jere Rivera Dugenio, and I was introduced to the TeslaTech conference through a friend of mine who you guys may or may not know. His name is Jack Slovak. Some of you may have known him. And he introduced me to this conference 2 years ago. And it was because of him that the technology that you see on this table, and I'm going to be speaking about, came to be. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had the, let's just say, the will to do it. And I honor this talk today in the memory of Jack Slovak. So, let's see. All right. So, I just want to start off by saying 17 years ago, I died due to a cardiac arrest, and I had the quintessential out-of-body experience, among other things. But more importantly, this thing keeps falling off, I'm sorry. More importantly is I reintegrated with what I call the field, the source field. Many of you could call it God, unified field, whatever you want to call it. 17 years ago, I experienced the field and experienced how our true nature is, and it's one of energy, but not just energy, it's light, sound, and more importantly, dark matter. The name Rasha, you see there, comes from an ancient Anahazi word that actually means dark matter. And if you've seen maybe this movie called Elysium, it was a movie a few years ago with Matt Damon, and they had these med pods. And I found it fascinating because these med pods were able to diagnose and heal through electromagnetic therapy. And the producer of the film, he was able to actually put his political beliefs in this movie. And his political statement was that he felt that society, Big Pharma, the government, was responsible for keeping people sick. And when I had my near-death experience, one of the major questions I asked myself was, why do we die? And everyone in this room will die. And when you do, you'll remember what I'm telling you. You can still think, and you're still conscious. And by being conscious is probably the most important thing for me with this technology, because it's not just about healing the body. It's about what happens when you actually transition, you drop your physical body. Most people will be in fear of the unknown. Maybe it's because your belief systems and what you were taught, but there's that fear of the unknown. And what I am attempting to do with this technology is not just only to help, heal the body, reverse disease cells, but more importantly is as you transition and you're exposed to this field, these frequencies, my goal is that hopefully most of you in this room will be able to reclaim your memory, because the biggest travesty is that when you die, if you don't have your consciousness to a certain level, you go into what's known as a coma, and you just go into a deep kind of like a sleep for 3 days. And it's not something I'm making up. You can look this up in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and other esoteric teachings. But a lot of this technology that I'm going to be talking about is really geared towards healing the body, but more importantly is to help you guys decide where you're going to go, because it's just, I find it ludicrous that when we travel abroad, we make flights, we book hotels, we book flights, we have an itinerary, don't we? Then how come when we die, no one knows where they're going? They leave it up to their faith, which is fine. But just remember one thing, your belief system will dictate what you experience upon death. So, so let me just keep moving. So I had questions before I began this project with Jack, and that was, what if current medical science was approaching disease in a very limited way? What causes disease from a quantum physics perspective? Is it possible to reverse disease as well as prevent it? And who were the progressive out-of-the-box thinkers that did research that proved that disease was reversible? What if modern science was only describing a condition of the infamous scalar waves, and reality had very limited experiential knowledge? And what is scalar plasma energy? So, before I begin, I just want to ask you to leave your belief systems at the door and everything that you were taught in university, because the information I'm about to share with you has been held from you, and I think it's your birthright to know what I'm about to share with you. So 99% of all the public technologies that are out there are based on what is known in the private sector as artificial life, golden mean ratio, Fibonacci spiral sequence, which are also called in the private sector death sciences. Private sector is what I call the industrial military complex versus public sector, which is where we are and what we're exposed to. Our technology is based on a very seldom used mathematics, which is based on a source spiral, a numerical sequence, which I'll go into as we move through this presentation. And it's really based on the laws of multidimensional physics. Now, the problem with what we were taught in university, school, life, is that our consciousness, the way we perceive things, is a single vector consciousness, which means it's linear, and we're bound by what we call time. And in order to understand the laws of multidimensional physics, which are utilized in the private sector, you need to adopt a multi-vector consciousness or perspective. That is why, if you can do that, the groundbreakers in their fields, they're able to switch to that multi-vector consciousness. Because the laws, the Newtonian physics and the laws just don't work in a multidimensional framework. Now, our spiral coils are very unique because they're derived on what's known as source spiral mathematics and sequence, which leads to internal quantum self-regeneration versus, let's just say, the inorganic vortex-based mathematics or golden mean ratio or Fibonacci spiral sequence, which has to do with recycling of finite energy to create expansion, not expansion through self-regenerated power. So you may or may not know, or you may be using the Fibonacci or phi ratio in your technology, and it's working. And the reason why it's being used and working in our planet right now, it's because we live in a black hole matrix. We live in a universe or a galaxy that at the center of our galaxy is a black hole. There's no denying this. And the Fibonacci spiral sequence, phi ratio, golden mean, they're all intimately related to black hole matrices. Now, we also use proprietary plasma gas mixes. Most technologies in the industry use, the widely known 5 inert noble gases. We do not. We use our proprietary gas mix and ratio that is only used in the industrial military complex. So I was like thinking, okay, so if the military is weaponizing all of these technologies, primarily scalar, plasma, psychotronics, could we use that to actually heal the body? That was my main goal. And I'll talk briefly about what we call the perpetual source spiral. So this is a spiral for all you mathematics aficionados. It's a spiral that expands by the square root of 2, or equals 1.414. So for every 45 degrees, or by 2 for every 90 degrees of rotation, it's a very specific expansion which has a 2-to-1 ratio, okay? The number 2 is the key of the source spiral. So it expands on a very frictionless exponential spiral that remains intact at the microcosmic as well as the macrocosmic level. You see here, this is the spiral, source spiral, and then here you see what's known as the 12-sphere fractal grid. You hear a lot of people in our industry talking about fractal grids. Fractal this, fractal that, right? But they never really show you what the fractal is. And it does look like what's known in the Kabbalah as the tree of life, but it's completely different. This is a fractal based on a 12-sphere grid, where the Kabbalah tree of artificial life is based on a 10-sphere grid. Now, many of you may or may know that I'd say maybe in the next few months there's going to be a really prominent mathematician that's going to be coming out with some research based on a numerical sequence or mathematics based on the 12. I think it's the law of 12 or something like that. So we're going to go away from the 10, base 10, it's going to be base 12. So it's interesting how we have a base 12 here in this fractal grid. So what are the death sciences? Any technology, body of knowledge, geometry, number sequence, mathematics based on the Fibonacci spiral sequence, phi ratio, golden mean, flower of life, or any religious esoteric teachings that fall under this are considered death sciences in the private sector. And it's very important because when you apply these death science technologies to your life, it may work now, it may get you the results now, but I promise you, when you leave your physical body, that's when you're going to know the difference, because this technology will cause space dust return. So let's just say we take a look at the human being as a quantum of energy. And some of you may or may not believe in reincarnation. It doesn't really matter, but there are people and beings that do. If you do associate with the death science technology, you are taking the risk of actually perpetually recycling or reincarnating until your core seed atom burns out and you have no memory of your experience in manifest creation. So this is very, I'm not asking you to believe a word I say. I'm asking you to listen to the words behind, or the energy behind my words, because that's where you'll find truth and my intention. Because there are a lot of light-based technologies. Light is very powerful, but light can deceive. Why? Because light refracts. Sound never lies. And that's why we use sound in our technology. The yin-yang. Many of you know of this, but it's actually a recycling mutation. The yin-yang is the core energy flows associated with the tube torus, another distorted energy pattern. It has to do with perpetual recirculation until exhaustion into cosmic space dust. So everything to me is energy. And it should be for you too, because that's what your true nature is. It's energy. It's not the physical body that you walk around in. So the yin-yang system was designed to actually vampire energy from living systems. And it's very prevalent in a black hole universe, which we are in. So the yin-yang is built upon the Fibonacci spiral, which is a vampiring spiral. Now, the Fibonacci sequence features a sequence of numerical expansion in which the next expansion number comes about by being added together or devouring the two numbers before it. So let's think of it, the numbers as energy, a quantum of energy. The two previous numbers are added together and consumed in order to become the next number, leaving nothing in their place. It's very important. So if you really, really think about it, and you meditate on this, it's kind of scary. So the proof is in the numbers. And for any of you that wants this presentation, just email me and I'll give it to you. So you don't have to take your notes. I'll give you the presentation. So the proof is in the numbers. You can see the sequence of the Fibonacci here, beginning with 0. And it's really, the Fibonacci is derived by adding the two numbers before it in order to get the next one. Whereas here, the source spiral numerical sequence actually has to do with doubling or multiplication times 2. So it's a growth by exponentiation. And it's very, very different when you're dealing with energy. And for those of you that know what I'm talking about, when you're doing mathematical equations that have to do with technologies that deal with energy, you want an energy source that's actually self-perpetuated, self-regenerated, versus something that has to do with recycling until you don't have any more of that source of energy. You have to take it from somewhere else. So, here, our coils are based on this sacred geometry, which is actually known as the Perpetual source code. Okay, so our coils are hand wound based upon this sequence versus the flower of life. Okay, the flower of life is intimately related to the expansion of the Fibonacci spiral and the 10 tree, we call it the artificial tree of life, okay? Versus the 12-sphere fractal grid and the source spiral. Here are some differences, which you can see there. I won't really go into it. You can take a look at this on your own. And I invite you to do your due diligence. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Go into what I'm proposing here and see if what I'm talking about has truth. So, we all know that there's a growing limitation in public medical science versus in the private sector. Newtonian-based perspective versus a multidimensional framework. University-taught knowledge versus universally known knowledge. Pharmaceutical-based paradigm versus energy-based. And we all know that the public science, medical science, is at least 30 years behind what's going on in the private sector. We all know that. So we know that Trump in January declassified a whole bunch of free energy and, in my case, anti-aging technologies from the DoD, Department of Defense. Here is just a snapshot. There are currently about 5,700 classified patents that are now going to be released over the next 10 years. So it's just interesting to find out that there's that many hidden patents that have to do with anti-aging, reverse aging, or free energy. This gentleman, Dr. David Sinclair, back in 2014, he was already proving through mice that we're able to control the gene. We're able to turn on certain genes on and off. And this is what our technology does. It actually is able to communicate with what's known as the introns, or the junk DNA, based upon work that was done by an individual here that many of you may or may not know, Professor Dr. Konstantin Meil. So a lot of our research was based on his work. Here's the little I don't know. It was his article, Sinclair's article, that he was able to reverse aging in mice. Okay, so many of us here are over the age of 20, and aging has a lot to do with it. Many of you may have heard of the immune system, right? It's a system in our body that attacks and destroys virus cells, invader cells. But many of you may or may not know that the immune system doesn't heal the body. Once it destroys the virus cell, its mission is complete. It doesn't heal the body in any shape or form. So what does heal the body is what's known as the cellular regenerative system, which was researched extensively by the late two-time Nobel Prize nominee, Dr. Robert Becker. He wrote The Body Electric. And this system of the body, he thought it was an electromagnetic system, but in actuality, it's more than an electromagnetic system. It's actually an electromagnetic system that is comprised of longitudinal scalar energy. And I'll show how that's possible in the next slide, because no one will tell you this, that our body is actually comprised of 5 scalar fields. We have 4 in our body and 1 vertical, okay? This information is used in the private sector to actually manipulate and mind control the human being, because they know that the human organism is based on scalar energy. And they use scalar energy to mind control, manipulate the masses. So this is a depiction. You'll have this when I send you. If you email me, I'll send you this. But it's very interesting that each of these scalar fields in our body are intimately related to our chakra systems. If you don't, how many of you have heard of chakras? Okay, so isn't it interesting that modern science wants to poo-poo chakras and say they don't exist? But in the private sector, they know that chakras exist, and the chakras are intimately related. They're actually, these scalar shields are intimately related to 3 chakras each in our body. Okay? So, Becker was able to do marvelous things in electromedicine, but really he was able to prove that he could de-differentiate a cell back to its earlier state, meaning he was able to prove that you can take a diseased cell and reverse it just by electromagnetic frequencies. Here's a paper that was published by him back in 1967. So here it is. This is his paper using small electrical currents doing exactly what I just said, reversing a diseased cell back to its normal state. Okay? So, what is disease in the quantum morphogenetic field physics perspective? For us, disease is nothing more than vibrational distortions in the energy field of a human organism. These are also known as what we call miasms. And all of these diseases that we have are distortions in the scalar fields in our body, the scalar shields. And if you can actually reprogram those scalar fields in our body, guess what? Disease disappears. Now, it was just a theory until we actually put it to the test. So, The aging process happens because our cellular regenerative system deteriorates, okay? That's why you'll hear people taking supplements, taking nutraceuticals to boost their immune system, but they still aren't able to heal the body. Why? Because the immune system does not heal the body. It's the cellular regenerative system that does that, okay? Okay, so according to Tesla, we have a scalar interferometer in our body, which is our brain, right? The left and right hemisphere of the brain is a very fascinating organ, I call it, supercomputer, because the brain and nervous system processes high-frequency discharges and can create scalar waves. So when we create thoughts, we're actually creating scalar energy. Now, it's important to understand that things like direct cognition, telepathy, manifestation, molecular transmutation, all the things that people call higher sensory perception, is absolutely attainable if you were to use your brain in the right way, meaning you're able to control what you create or what you think, okay? Now, all disease is a scalar wave distortion, a miasm, okay? So we took autism spectrum disorder because a dear friend of mine, there she is, Rose, she's going to come up here because we actually used her son as a case study with our device. And he was autistic, nonverbal, and now he's not. And we have a video and some case studies here to show you. So if you don't believe that miasms actually exist, there's tons of published research online to show you that actually miasms do exist, and they do affect disease. Okay. So who are the groundbreakers in our technology? Obviously, Nikola Tesla, Dr. Royal Rife, Antoine Priori, and Constantine Weil. Those are the four individuals that influenced our technology. So we all know Tesla. That's why we're here, right? But many of you may or may know that he actually was responsible for a whole branch of medicine called ElectroMedicine. Now, he never patented anything in this area, but he did announce his findings to the medical community at the time. So we're all familiar with his flat coil. We all know that his coils were able to generate scalar energy. And it's interesting that this quote that we all have heard of, if you can find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. His work, his patent, spawned our coils. Now, our coils are a bit different than Tesla's flat coils. Obviously, they're more, you see, toroidal or three-dimensional, right? But they're based on that pattern that I showed you earlier. And, let's go over scalar, and I'm asking you to think from a multi-vector perspective. Many of you know that scalar is produced when two electromagnetic waves come together from two opposite converging vectors, right? That's the theory. And when these energy vectors meet, they cancel each other out, leaving a standing wave or a stationary energy field. But we're only now finding that this stationary field is not empty, it's not a vacuum, it's actually filled with information, right? So 99% of the scientists and physicists on this planet, when they describe scalar, including mathematicians, are actually only describing a condition. They really don't understand, and it's not anyone's fault, it wasn't anyone's fault that they were taught this, but when you die, and you will, and you reintegrate back into the field, you will understand that this whole field, this empty space between you and I, is filled with scalar. the field is scalar, okay? Plasma can convert a transverse wave into a longitudinal scalar wave, okay? And the work of Antoine Priori proved this. So that's our device there with the two vortex coils and the plasma gas tube, okay? That's the whole device there with our software. Here's the inert noble gases that I'm just showing you that most technologies use. We do not. There's published research on inert noble gases, so if you think it's just anecdotal, it's not. It's published, and there's tons of papers online about the biological healing properties of inert noble gases. So, what is scalar? So, when I had my near-death experience, three-dimensional reality converged with multi-dimensional reality, meaning my 3D reality that we live right now met with the multi-dimensional framework of existence. That convergence allowed me to reintegrate to the field. Now, a scalar wave or energy is a multi-dimensional spherical standing wave pattern that emanates out of a fixed point of sound tonal vibration within the morphogenetic field of the cosmic unified field. So, what is scalar? It's a self-generated fission-fusion process. All it is light, sound, expansion, contraction. Tesla used more of the electrical vector, expansion. We use the magnetic component, okay? So scalar really is a fixed point. It doesn't move. That's the misnomer and the erroneous thinking that actually scalar moves. It does not move. Here is a depiction of scalar. Here is an illustration I pulled off the web. This is sound. This is like a vortex in, vortex out, white hole, black hole. So, scalar is the potential of both, okay? Constantine talked about it with the magnetic vector, Tesla more on the electric. Now, in order to really understand scalar, you need to understand what the primal substance of the universe is, okay? People talk about the God particle. It's not true, okay? It's disinformation, all right? The primal substance of the universe is really, it's really what's called a source particle. It's a neutral, non-polar unit of energy that holds the potential of electric or magnetic. Really, that's what it really comes down to. It's literally a spherical, omnipolar particle. Now, here you see them talking about the God particle, what it is, et cetera, but in reality, they really don't know what it is. They're feeding that to the masses so that they can satiate everyone's curiosity on really what is the smallest unit of energy. Now, in the private sector, this is what's known, okay? This fission-fusion process, self-perpetual, self-regenerated, okay? It's antiparticle and particle, okay? It's actually made up of pre-matter ether, okay? So it is so one of these 800 million source particles can fit into a proton. So it really has to do with the splitting of two particles into electrical and magnetic. So during this fission-fusion process, light is created. When the fusion process occurs, infrasound is created. Not audible sound, infrasound. So here you see a depiction of the source particle. The antiparticle sphere actually that holds the electrical charge is the transmitting of energy. It oscillates 50% faster than this one over here due to its holding more energy. The particle aspect holds magnetic charge, receives energy, and I'm just giving you this information. You do whatever you want with this. My hope is that one of you out there will take this information and run with it, with your research and your technology. Okay? So, I won't, you really can't see, but these source particles, they continue to expand and cluster, and they form source particle grids, creating standing longitudinal wave patterns of fixed points of tonal frequency. So in actuality, these source particle grids are formed upon this, okay? The 12-sphere grid, okay? Many of you may or may not heard of morphogenetic fields. Morphogenetic fields are literally standing scalar wave grids. They're one and the same, okay? And they're actually what I call lattices because they constantly fluctuate, right? So around every cell, every atom, there is a morphogenetic field. It's the blueprint of matter, okay? So we use sound in our technology. Why? Because, you know, we feel that sound is much more powerful than light, and it is. And when you understand the sequence of flashing on and off of the source particles, you can actually increase or decrease the strength of the effect in what you're trying to attain when you're dealing with disease. Okay? Here is a picture of our software that has to do with sound. This is a picture of one of our sections called trilateral balanced sine wave. Okay? So where most people use binaural beats, we do not. We transmit 2 sets of 3 into each ear, causing a more holographic, more multidimensional effect. In training the brain, even that much more powerful. Okay? Here's some more information. And the reason why is because binaural beats have a shortcoming. They don't address the changing biorhythm frequencies throughout the day. Throughout the 24-hour cycle, there's changing biorhythms and changing frequencies. Our algorithm actually accounts for that with TBSW. So it's very, very powerful. And I invite you to come to our booth and experience it. So let's talk about a misconception with vibration, right? Most people talk about, you know, hey, you know, you have high vibration, man. You know, you're a high consciousness being with high vibration. Well, no. In actuality, vibration is energy holding. It's internal movement, okay, when we're dealing with source particles. Oscillation is external movement or energy expansion. So this vibratory oscillation rate is the rate at which source particles flash on and off, So they are in direct proportion to each other. As vibration increases, things get dense. Things get, you know, the energy is more held, right? As oscillation decreases, energy expands. So this whole thing about the higher the vibration, the better, it's wrong. It should be higher oscillation when it comes to attaining higher dimensional consciousness or higher dimensional perspectives, okay? So, yeah. So here is you'll see a video of, they look like lights in Broadway, right? The series of flashing bulbs. Just see if this works. No. Maybe that. Oh. I think I did something here. But anyway, a good depiction, a simple depiction of scalar is if you take a look at those flashing bulbs, right? They appear to move, don't they? But they really, in actuality, do not move. They're different light bulbs at flashing on at different oscillation rates, right? Some faster, some slower. That is a very crude example of scalar. They do not move. Scalar does not move. It just has different flash rates. Can you get that video to move, perhaps, or no? No? Okay, that's fine. How much time do I have left? Okay. All right. That's okay. All right. It's fine. I'll just keep moving. Yeah. There's tons of benefits of scalar energy. I cited Dr. Ryan here because he did some good work on the effects of scalar on the human organism. You'll see that. I'll send you this. I'm just trying to rush through this to get to our case study. Max Planck Institute in Germany did a lot of research with scalar. Scalar unglues the blood, you know. Diseased blood clumps together. Healthy blood does not. Scalar on pathogens, it's great for, you know, addressing pathogens like candida in the body. So it's interesting that Tesla was exposed to tremendous amounts of electrosmog during his life, right? Well, that's what you'd think. Yet he lived to 86, far beyond the 65-year mean in 1943. Now, why is that? Tesla and many of the doctors in the day believed it's because he found ways to neutralize disease, bacteria, and harmful electrosmog radiation due to his exposure to the scalar field. Because people say, well, you know, aren't you, you know, wasn't Tesla exposed to a lot of electrosmog? Yeah, he was. But he was also exposed to the natural healing effects of the scalar field. So this is Professor Dr. Konstantin Meil. I'm pretty sure he spoke here a few years ago. So his contention is that DNA communicates through the magnetic vector of the scalar wave, okay? Cellular communication, according to Dr. Meil, occurs through this right here, the magnetic scalar, okay? Now, it's interesting, though, that in our DNA, we don't just have two double helix. In the middle, science knows this to what's called the magnetic groove, okay? This magnetic groove is a magnetic field, which are made up of phosphates with negative charged and associated field. And the major groove is also a morphogenetic field capable of receiving magnetic information that is transmitted through the magnetic vector of a scalar, okay? So that was our theory. We took Dr. Meil's work and we said, okay, let's see if he's right. Let's transmit energy, frequency, into patients and see if something happens. This is our mathematics, okay? It reveals that the major groove inside the double spiral helix of a DNA isn't empty, that it's occupied by this morphogenetic field, okay? And the patterning of this is a 3, 6, 9, 12, not 3, 6, 9. Everyone talks about 3, 6, 9, but they forget about the 12, okay? Why is the 12 so important? Because if you just have 3, 6, and 9, which vortex-based mathematics is based upon, you don't get true internal quantum self-regeneration. You get recycling of energy until what happens? The core seed atom burns out. Now, this is very important when it comes to cellular communication and how genetic information is stored. This is a depiction of our 3, 6, 9, 12 mathematics. And our coils are based upon this mathematics. The way those coils are wound are based on this, okay? And if you want to come to the booth later, I'll explain more to you. I'm just trying to get through this. Now, we're able to actually transmit this information to what's known as the junk DNA or introns, okay? Introns are information carriers, and according to Konstantin Meil, gene control metabolism is only possible when energy plus information are present, or scalar, okay? We can move disease out of the body by reprogramming the morphogenetic field of the DNA. Here's a great book on junk DNA that has to do with dark matter. Isn't it interesting that the name of our device, Rasha, means dark matter, and this woman is talking about junk DNA, introns, the dark matter of the genome. It's not by coincidence. I didn't make that up. It was just, it just happens to be. So a lot of our research is based on Russian researchers that believe that our DNA is equivalent to internet or a holographic computer, and that the DNA actually operates like a computer, a living computer. And there is a scientist by the name of Dr. Garzhajev that proved that the DNA can actually be reprogrammed using radio waves and light frequencies, inducing genetic repair. Antoine Priori, he was an Italian engineer living in France. He was able to cure cancer in animals using plasma gas and a high dose of a magnetic field. But he unfortunately used the phi ratio in his equations, so he wasn't able to get the results that we're getting in a short amount of time without using a huge magnetic field. So this was his device. So we were at the Autism 1 conference this year. These were autistic children. So our device actually creates a 6-foot field, magnetic field. And any person within that field is affected, meaning we're able to transmit energy plus information into the introns as long as they're within 6 feet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Kazanashev experiments, Russian researcher with the role of phase conjugation. Many of you are here, know about this, and some of your work out there I see has something to do with this. So this experiment proved that disease cells can be reversed. If you can cause a disease by electromagnetic signals, you can also reverse it. They call it time reversal. Okay? Many of you may or may not know of Roel Rife, resonant frequencies. He was a man who cured cancer, shut down by the AMA after curing and reversing over 30 stage 4 cancer patients with his frequencies. So our software was created by a doctor that actually was one of the last remaining members of his original team. So we have Rife frequencies in our software. And it's interesting how his original ray, his plasma ray beam is similar to ours. So these are Rife frequencies killing paramecium, but the video is not working. Here is a published research on vibrational therapy, ultrasound, so this is not just anecdotal. Here is a picture of our software on the Rife setting. So we have over 3,000 original Rife frequencies. Not only that, we have converted Holder-Clark frequencies, so we took her frequencies and we converted it to Rife frequencies based on a specific algorithm. We have a manual section where we can actually input frequencies and structure water, oils, creating homeopathic remedies. Chakras. Why do we have chakras? Because chakras are intimately related to the scalar fields in our body. Ancient tones, this is for emotional clearing. And we have a sweep generator. If we don't have the frequencies, we have a sweep generator. We can actually use applied kinesiology or muscle testing to find that specific frequency if we don't have it in our database. So here's a paper that I just published with a few doctors in Asia that came out in July in a peer-reviewed journal using our technology and how it was able to affect autism spectrum disorder. So I'm going to bring up Rose real quick. Rose Salinas Karankong, she was generous enough to, I've known her kids since they were born, and I'll let her talk here.
Hi, good morning. I hope the video is working. I hope they got the video working for, oh, she's bringing up another mic. Hello? Okay, there we go. So, again, my son was, first of all, we used the ATEC, which is the Autism Treatment Evaluation Checklist, which is what many parents, teachers, and other professionals use to kind of compare baseline scores before starting a treatment program, and then looking at post-treatment scores to see if there was any progress. We also utilized GCMAF. I'm not sure if any of you have heard that. It helps to activate the immune system. We also used what's known as Quintana. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of that. It's also a marine plasma water, and we used the Rasha morphogenetic harmonizer system for our son's protocol. So the first one, the first case study we have is a case of a female with frozen shoulder. She came in and she was in a motor vehicle accident. She had lost almost complete range of motion in her arm, and she was having lots of pain, and she was not sleeping because of the pain. She came in. The first session was about 60 minutes, and after that session, she immediately noted a decrease in pain. And the second session we ran about a week later, and she was able to actually gain mobility back in that arm. I had got a message from her saying that, oh my gosh, I'm able to actually raise my arm all the way up here, whereas before she was unable to do that. So the outcome for that was sustained pain relief, and she was able to begin physical therapy at that point because she was able to gain range of motion. Our next case is of trigeminal neuralgia. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of trigeminal neuralgia. It's a debilitating neurological disorder. We'll just move to, I hope her video works. Can we see if we can play it? Okay.
That's okay, thanks. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah, I know that we had before and after video, but so the case of trigeminal, she was receiving burning, stabbing pains throughout her entire left side of the face, around 2 times a month, lasting anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, anywhere from 2 to 24 hours per episode. So she was in constant pain. Her doctor, her primary care physician, actually just gave her pain medication, and then she was referred over to a neurologist that gave her more pain medication and actually suggested either radiation therapy or even brain surgery to offer relief. And they said even with those procedures, there was it would be highly likely, like within 7 years, she would have the onset of the pain again. After a total of 7 sessions, approximately 60 minutes each, targeting trigeminal neuralgia, she's been episode free. The last session she's had was probably about 2 months ago, and she actually decided to take herself off of medication. Unfortunately, the video's not working, but you could see her talking about it. We had another case of, someone with a level 2 calf sprain tear. He came in, his calf, he had like a cankle, basically. His leg was so swollen and he was in so much pain. He said he actually had to crawl to get to the restroom. He had a total of 3 sessions, 60 minutes each, within a 1-week period of time, and there was a significant decrease in pain and swelling. And I'm sorry, the video is not working. You would be able to see also his leg also. And then the case of the Lyme disease, would you like to go ahead and talk about her case real quick?
She at 16 was diagnosed with Lyme disease. For 5 years, she didn't leave the house. So she had lesions on the white matter of her brain, parasites, hepatitis. I mean, this girl's life ended at 16. So let's see, you can just move it. If the video was working, it's her having seizures. It looks like she was possessed in the movie The Exorcist. And it was really bad. Next. She would go into what's known as Lyme rage and just start going very aggressive, destroying things in the house. And we decided to treat her or help her and balance her. And after 6 weeks on the protocol, which had to do with the Rasha 2 times a day for the cellular regenerative system, she was actually, after 6 weeks, she was able to get out of the house and drive her car for the first time in like 5 years. So something was happening, and we weren't sure what, but, our technology was doing some crazy things. Next.
So this is just a little bit more detail about the ATEC that we utilized for the kids on the spectrum that we work with. So the first case that we had was my son. Oh no, actually this was a case after my son that we're working with that actually reproduced the results that we saw with our son. Now this is a 5-year-old boy with autism. He had the total therapy list of ABA, speech, OT, PT. At the age of 4, he began the biomedical approach of changing his diet, of doing supplements. He was not able to attend school. He was highly aggressive, self-interest behaviors, nonverbal. He was constantly sick, and tantrums. I mean, not just regular children tantrums, but full meltdowns that would last 40 to 60 minutes. He was first introduced to scalar wave therapies at 4 years of age, and we utilized the ATEC to monitor his progress over time. So as you can see here, right here is the total subscale score. He was at a 153. Now I believe the highest you could get is a 179. Now the higher the subscale, the subtotal score, the more severe the symptoms. So he was pretty severe as far as being on the autism spectrum. Here's him at the age of, 5 years old. It dropped to a 126. So we went from a 153 to a 126 in that time. And we had video of him also where in the beginning you could see he was non-responsive to his name. He was completely in his own world playing on the iPad. And then you saw his progress over 5 weeks. He began to vocalize. And then at 6 weeks, he was actually able to count. He was saying numbers. It was just incredible.
We can show you the video at the booth if you want to come by.
At the booth, yes, we'll be able to show these videos. Now, this is the overall progress of him since beginning the protocol. Increased level of awareness. Now this is a kid that was in his own world, wouldn't even know if there was someone around him or anything like that. It was like he came out of his shell. He was now looking around, showing curiosity. He was able to get potty trained. He decreased in aggression and tantrum behaviors. His speech and language skills began to emerge. Increase of facial expression and affect. I'm not sure if any of you have seen anyone that's on the spectrum, but typically there's not a whole lot of facial affect when they talk, or intonation, like when my voice fluctuates. Usually they sound very monotone, like they talk kind of like a robot. His speech and language skills began to change in that sense. This is him 5 weeks into the protocol. He went from a 126, it dropped to a 72. It was pretty incredible. And this was the total progression from here, and then a total drop over here, as you can see. And this is heavy metals, chemtrails, this is rainwater tests. Okay, and this is my son. He was very sick, diagnosed at 3 years of age, although he started early intervention at 18 months. We, both my husband and I are in the field of working with children on the spectrum, so we knew the red flags to look at. So as soon as we saw those red flags, we immediately began aggressive intervention. And he was constantly sick, hospitalized an average of around 3 years, hospitalized, like in there for around four days. He had asthma, chronic constipation, poor weight gain, irregular sleep patterns. This was a video of him at age 2.5 where I'm talking to him and he's just not even aware that I'm talking to him. It's our parents actually thought he was deaf. He was not responding to his name. He just was like not there, completely just not there. And then this is his overall progression score. He started at a 156 here, which was pretty severe. He dropped after around 2.5 years on scalar wave therapies. We dropped into a 73. We continued with scalar wave therapies. We got him to a 26. And we changed his diet to an anti-inflammatory diet. And after 6 weeks with including the GCMEF, which helped activate his immune system, along with scalar wave therapies, we were able to drop his score to a 14, which at this time, technically, according to the ATEC, anywhere with a score between 10 and 14, usually they would say that you would be on the verge of losing your diagnosis. I'm just gonna, go through this. So after 20 weeks of Rasha and with GCMEF, we dropped his scale to a 2, which means he now has lost his diagnosis. And according to the DSM-5, he would not be eligible for an autism diagnosis. He's like a different kid. Those that knew him throughout this journey would say he's like a different kid. Now he's like a typical 7-year-old boy. He plays with other kids. He talks and fights with his little brother. It's pretty incredible. It absolutely is incredible. So here you see the progression with the Rasha. It's just amazing. If any of you have time, please stop by our booth. We'll be happy to show you the videos. Yeah, these are just the videos of everything and the overall updates of him.
So so that's my email. So if you want to write it down, email me. And that's it, folks.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Any questions? Come on up to the microphone, please.
I don't know if you mentioned, was her son vaccinated?
My son was not vaccinated.
Oops, sorry.
It's okay. My son was not vaccinated. However, our daughter was. She had a severe response to the 1-year MMR vaccine. And after that, she was never the same. So after that experience with her, and she's also diagnosed on the autism spectrum, however, she's very high functioning. So that's why we decided not to vaccinate our son. But as the slides were before, he did come down with this like severe illness at around 16 months of age, where he had high fevers for about a month, almost the same symptoms as our daughter did after her vaccination. We attribute it to chemtrails. They do a lot of heavy spraying in Los Angeles, and it was just a sudden onset. He just all of a sudden became sick. And he had all the symptoms that were pretty much consistent with a lot of other people that had reported responding to chemtrail precipitation or residue, with the increased respiratory illnesses, compromised immune system, asthma, all of those things he had across the board. And it's amazing because the software that we have with the Rasha does address chemtrail, and I did run chemtrail detox on him along with mercury detox. But in the chemtrail rainwater test, you see there's high levels of mercury, aluminum, and strontium, barium, a lot of chemicals that were tested just from rainwater.
Wow, so it sounds like they're putting chemtrail mixes into the vaccines, so we're getting it
There are
regardless.
levels of aluminum, yeah, there are high levels of aluminum and mercury, of course, in vaccines.
I guess there's no place to hide.
It's pretty scary. It's pretty
Fiji.
scary.
All right.
Yeah.
Go to
Thank you.
Bali.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I had two basic questions. I have a friend in California. He's got a son who'll be turning 22 this September. He acquired autism at the age of 2. The father believes it was through the vaccinations, but actually I believe it's genetics because the father has a tinge of it. He's forgetful. The father himself is forgetful. He can't, remember simple things to do, like be to work on time. Even if he was living at the job itself, he'd still be late. But my question is, can this technology that you guys have, this scalar wave technology, can it assist someone who's already at the age of 22 and has gone through from childhood up to adulthood with that spectrum of autism? He's not at like a 156. He doesn't have temper tantrums, but he's non-verbal, very much in his own world, beyond his computer or whatever. And you talk to him, he'll respond, but he's not good with communicating just in general.
Okay, I'll answer part of that question, and then I'll let Dr. J answer the other part. As far as genetics is concerned, I know with a lot of research that I've done, and from what I've seen and talked with other parents that have had genetic testing done, I believe autism is the onset of a perfect storm of things. There's not one thing that has caused autism. For example, my daughter was vaccinated, my son was not.
Right.
So I get a lot of questions about the vaccine issue in that, and so I can't say if it was the vaccine itself that caused it. So and then there are parents that have had genetic testing done that has showed that their child does not have the genetic gene that also is correlated with autism, but yet their child has symptoms of autism. So I think it really is the perfect storm of many different things, including environment, genetics also, because they may be predisposed disposed to it and the triggers haven't been turned on. Diet, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think contribute to that. But as far as this working with an older person, we do have a case where we have been working with someone that's older, and Dr. J can talk better about that.
Yeah, we're working with a child. Well, he's not a child, he's 19.
Okay,
And we're getting some pretty incredible results, yeah.
awesome.
And I think it's because the Rosh is able to work at that DNA level.
Right.
Okay. And does this technology, can it assist someone who has either dementia or Alzheimer's?
Yep.
Even at, say, the higher stages, at stage 4, whatever, like they're physically there, but not mentally there?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jere Rivera Dugenio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a short break, and we'll be coming back with